Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
Unknowingly raising other people's children or not. Today's story with a similar plot. Enjoy watching it. While I was on the road, I was informed that my son had been hit by a car while riding his bicycle. Most of the injuries were not very serious, but the doctors were worried about his kidneys. In theory, I might not have rushed home, but I wanted to be close, and my employer showed complete understanding. I flew all night to get to the hospital. In principle, this was not necessary, but I did it anyway, even though the doctor said he would be fine. Sometimes unexpected things happen, and I wanted to be there. In addition, if a kidney transplant was required, compatibility testing would be needed, and it's better to do it as soon as possible. Due to the chaos of packing, booking tickets, and transfers, I did not sleep for almost 24 hours. I can't sleep on planes or in airports. When I arrived at the hospital, Denise was not there. The nurse at the counter said that she had gone home to get some rest since I was not expected until the evening. At that moment, I realized that I had forgotten to call Denise and inform her of my movements. I was in such a hurry that it slipped my mind. I asked if they had a place where I could take a nap for a couple of hours since I didn't want to leave the hospital. I was offered the use of an empty cot in Nate's room where Denise had been sleeping. I went in, pulled the curtain for privacy, and fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. I was awakened by a conversation behind the curtain. I was just starting to wake up when I heard the door open and someone enter. I heard my wife's voice talking to Nate, who was being sedated at that moment. "How's my boy today?" she asked him. "I'm so sorry for what you're going through, baby." Then I heard the beep beep of her pressing the buttons on her cell phone and then a pause while she waited for the connection. I was still waking up, so I decided to just lie there until she finished the call. I heard her one-sided conversation, and it changed my whole life. "Hello, it's me." I didn't see or hear him, but he said he'd go home straight away. I guess he's already on his way. I know, but he wants to be here just in case, and I can't tell him he shouldn't get tested. Besides, he might be compatible even though they're not related. What the hell? And who the hell is she talking to? Of course, he agreed to be tested if necessary. He agreed to such things when we chose him as a father, although he probably now regrets it. He looks so much like Henry, but Henry is not a fool. If another donor is found and he turns out to be incompatible, he will begin to suspect. They chose who? Oh my God. And who the hell is she talking to? You know Henry. He'll probably do a DNA test, and when he finds out about Nate, he'll suspect Gracie and Danny too, and we know where that will lead. Of course not. I won't let Nate suffer to keep the secret. We'll just have to deal with it. I think I can convince him it was a good idea to test the whole family. That way, if there's no compatibility, Henry won't be suspicious. Okay, I'll let you know if anything changes. Bye. She ended the call and took a deep breath. At that moment, I was so angry that I was shaking. I stood up and threw back the curtain with a flourish. Frightened, Denise turned around sharply and saw me. "God, Henry, you scared me." "What, were you doing there?" "Slept," I replied calmly. "Oh, did you just wake up?" she asked hopefully. "No, I woke up a few minutes ago." "And to answer your next question, yes, I heard every word you said." "Who is it?" "Who, dear?" "Don't be a fool, D." "Who is Nate's father?" "You are his father, dear." "You know what I mean, damn it." "Who is it?" I can't tell you." "Can't or don't want to?" "Both, probably." "It was part of the agreement." "But please, listen, darling. Please, it's not what you think." "What do you think I'm thinking about?" "That you cheated on me and deceived me into raising other people's children because I didn't want to have yours." "Did you cheat on me?" "Well, technically." "And you hid the fact that the children are not mine?" "Yeah, but..." "And I raised other people's biological children?" "Regrettably, yes, Henry." "So where am I wrong in my conclusions?" "Because I wanted to have your children, dear, but you couldn't give them to me." "I know we had problems, but that's no reason." "Henry, you're infertile," she suddenly blurted out. I wondered where the fist that had just hit me in the chest had gone. Infertility? No, it is impossible. Who told you that? I was able to squeeze it out of your mother, Denise said quietly. What? I do not understand. Do you remember how, before Nate came along, I spent a couple of mornings a week with your mom just talking over coffee? I mentioned that we were trying to have a baby and it wasn't working out. That's when she told me that you had several racing bike accidents when you were young. You got hit in the groin several times, and it left you infertile. She showed me the results of the tests they did on you when you were 16. Jesus, she never told me about this. She mentioned it, but she didn't want to be the bearer of bad news and thought maybe you wouldn't want kids. When she found out we wanted kids, she felt bad for what she did, but telling you then didn't solve the problem. So you and she came up with this plan to get pregnant and pass them off as mine? We wanted to give you the kids you wanted, and this seemed like a great way to go. If Nate hadn't gotten hurt, you might never have found out. And the fact that you slept with someone else is just a bonus, right? Who is he? Honey, please, I only did this so we could have children. Oh, so you didn't have a good time? No fun and all that? Well, no, honey. I can't say that it is, but you know how sensitive I am. And has it ever occurred to you that I might rather have a faithful wife than children, especially ones that aren't mine? But they are yours. You are the only father they have ever known. Only because you and my mother manipulated and deceived me. But it's still true. Who is he, Denise? It's Gabe, isn't it? She hesitated just for a second, and I realized that I had guessed right. No, it's not him. I can't tell you. I promised, but it's not Gabe. You made a promise to me in the first place. I wonder how you hold on to that promise so tenaciously, and the one you made to me was so easily broken. I turned around angrily and walked over to Nate's bed and kissed his forehead. Despite the circumstances in which I found myself, he was still my son, just as Gracie and Danny were mine too, although I was not going to admit that to Denise yet. With these thoughts, I headed to the door of the room. Henry, where are you going? We need to talk. I turned to her with as much anger as I could muster. I'm going to hit Gabe. Henry, no, it's not him. I already told you that. Then give me another name. I can't, honey. But it isn't Gabe. Please don't do anything you'll regret. Well, apparently Gabe will get it for something he didn't do. Henry! That was all I heard as the door closed behind me. I can imagine that my facial expression reflected inner rage and anger as people quickly moved out of the way as I walked down the hallway. Not wanting to wait for the elevator, I found the door to the stairwell and descended 8 floors, reaching the street in a matter of minutes. As much as I couldn't believe that Denise and my mom could do this to me, I was equally stunned by Gabe's involvement. We always got along well and spent a lot of time together when we were young. His father, my Uncle Richard, was often away on business trips, and he became attached to me as an older brother. It was not difficult to find out that it was him. The family always talked about how similar Gabe and I were, and we were often mistaken for siblings rather than cousins. If I were trying to fool myself into thinking the children were mine, I would choose him. He was 10 years younger than me, but we got along great. After thinking about his age, I did some math in my head and realized that, as far as I knew, he first got Denise pregnant shortly after he turned 19. Jesus. Unfortunately for my plans for revenge, Gabe and his wife Chelsea lived about 2 hours away. This was enough time for Denise to warn him, and he managed to escape. But I went anyway because the trip gave me time to think, and there was always a chance that he would decide to stay home and take what was due to him. No, I didn't believe in it either. I must have been driving too fast, as I covered 128 miles in just 90 minutes. It was already getting dark outside, and the roads were almost empty. At the moment, I couldn't care less about speed limits. I parked on the street and walked up to the small house where Gabe and Chelsea lived with their children. Well, I guess Gabe actually had 5 children. I wonder how Chelsea will react to this news. I went up to the porch and started knocking on the door. Gabriel, you creep, come out here. I alternated between knocking and shouting a couple more times before I heard the deadbolt being unlocked and the door swinging open, only to find Chelsea standing on the other side of the door. She looked at me curiously and just waited for an explanation. "Hey, Chelsea. Is Gabe here?" "No, he left immediately after your wife called him and warned him that you were coming. And there's no need to be louder, the children are sleeping. Any idea when he'll be back?" "I'm afraid not. Do you mind if I wait for him on your porch?" "And then what, Henry? Deprive me of my husband and my children of their father? Send yourself to prison? Is that your plan?" I didn't think of it in those terms. Frustrated and tired, I simply collapsed on the bench on the porch, covering my face with my hands. Chelsea sat down next to me. "I'm sorry for what's happening, Henry. He didn't do it to be mean or to gain an advantage. You were always his favorite cousin and like a brother to him. He thought he was helping by doing you a favor." As she spoke, I realized that she knew the secret, and it made me wonder who else in the family knew about it. "You knew?" "Gabe told me when we started dating seriously. It took me a while to get used to the idea, but he didn't want there to be secrets between us. Except for me, apparently. Well, it was an idea, Henry, but it was done out of love, not malice. I hope you understand that. Who else knows about this? As far as I know, it's just me, Gabe, Denise, and your mom. And now you, of course." We sat in silence for several minutes. I realized that I wouldn't achieve anything here anymore. Even if I could beat up Gabe, assuming I was capable of it, it wouldn't change anything. This didn't mean I completely forgave him, but nothing would be resolved today. Moreover, he was not here at all. I got up to leave. "Thanks for the information, Chelsea. It was enlightening. See you later, I guess. Goodbye, Henry." I walked slowly down the steps and across the lawn to my car. I didn't have a clear plan for what to do next, but staying married seemed unlikely. And what about my mother's part in all of this crap? As soon as I opened the car door. "Henry, can I tell Gabe it's safe for him to come home?" "Certainly." I got into the car and began the difficult journey home. It was almost midnight when I got there, and I was extremely tired. On the way, I was full of adrenaline, but it had already dried up. Perhaps I should have stopped at a hotel to rest and think about the situation, but that didn't even cross my mind. I don't remember much about the drive home, but I do remember the anger that filled me when I pulled up to the house and saw my mother's car there and the lights on. I knew in my mind that she was helping by looking after Gracie and Danny while Denise and I were at the hospital or at work, but it still reminded me of her role in all of this, and I got angry again. I sat in the car for several minutes before I finally walked into the house. Mom and Denise were sitting in the living room talking but fell silent when I entered. "Did you find Gabe?" Denise asked. "No. You'll be glad to know that the warning call to your lover worked. He's not my lover, Henry. He never was. It was a biological action done to achieve a result, and that's all. I hope you believe this. You're spewing nonsense." "I definitely don't." "Henry," my mother interrupted for the first time since I arrived, "please try to understand the intention behind this. Why should I even listen to my wife or her pimp?" "Pimp?" She was indignant. "Of course, you sold my wife for a fee. It was grandchildren instead of money, but that still makes you her pimp as far as I'm concerned. Now I'm tired and going to bed. Mom, you can take the sofa or my side of the bed. I'll sleep in Nate's room." I ignored Denise's requests to sleep in our bed together, but I had no intention of doing so. I just stripped down to my boxers and got into bed. Despite all the excitement, I was so tired that I immediately fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up to find both women sitting in the kitchen, seemingly waiting for me to show up. I poured myself a cup of coffee and felt their gazes burning into my back. Finally, Denise broke the silence. "We need to talk about this, Henry. I guess the time to talk was before you got my cousin pregnant with you 3 times. Please, dear. I can't change what was done. We need to figure out how we can move on." "Really? So I can sleep with some random woman and then come back and say that's in the past? Seems like a slippery slope. It's not the same, and you know it. Yeah, sounds like you're using the same logic. Yes, I slept with my husband's cousin and got pregnant 3 times, but that shouldn't matter because it's in the past. How is that different? Because I did it for you. For me? Are you really trying to convince me that you had a night with Gabe for me? No, I had an intimate with Gabe to have children. The children were for you. Night with Gabe was just a means to an end. And you didn't want children, right, Mom? You didn't want grandchildren either, right? Henry, my mother chimed in, intervening for the first time today. You know that's not true. I really wanted grandchildren, and when I found out about your injury, I was devastated. But over time, I accepted it. I probably should have told you, but I hoped it wouldn't be a problem. And of course, Denise wanted to be a mom. One of the reasons we did it was because she wanted to experience pregnancy and birth. And when it worked once, we did it twice more. I know you're not happy about what we did, but the results were perfect. Ideal? My wife is cheating on me, is that ideal? Okay, not that part. But you can try to make it look any way you want. You cheated on me for your selfish needs and used I did it for Henry to justify it. You made a huge life-changing decision about my life and didn't even consult me. You just decided what you thought I wanted and did it. Perhaps I would have preferred a faithful wife. I would definitely agree to adoption, but we will never know because you made the decision about what you wanted, not me. So there is no need to make excuses. Okay, honey, you're right. We thought it was a good plan, and we were wrong. But think about where we are now. I love you, the kids love you, and I know you love them too, no matter what. Okay, your love for me has suffered, but I think it's still there. Let's accept what is and find a way to make the best of it. First of all, I would never give up on children, but you just don't understand. This isn't some small error in judgment. You made a major decision without my consent, slept with my cousin several times, and then lied to me every day since then. This doesn't even take into account that neither you nor Mom thought it necessary to tell me about my infertility. So yeah, let's accept things for what they are, and that's that I'm married to a lying, cheating wife, and my own mother is actually on her side. Okay. I understand why you're so upset. Can we at least put this aside for a while and focus on our son's health? Yes, our son. Okay. We'll have plenty of time to deal with Gabe once Nate gets better, but I can't promise what will happen if I see him. Just tell him to stay away from Nate's room. After getting dressed, I drove to Denny's to get breakfast before heading to the hospital. I also wanted to pull myself together before going in there. Nate's recovery couldn't have been harder to deal with amidst so much anger and anxiety. When I arrived at the hospital, Nate was alert. We only talked for a few minutes before his fatigue took over and he fell asleep again. I was impressed with how bravely he took it. I know I had moments of fear and sadness as we went through this process, and yesterday's revelation didn't change that one bit. The next few days passed in a kind of fog. I checked into a hotel for a few days to get away from Denise and Mom's constant demands to discuss the situation. My employer was understanding and provided me with FMLA time off. I used sick days and vacation days to maintain income. Luckily, I had a few weeks saved up. One of the things I did in my free time was consult with a lawyer. It turned out that even though I was not the biological father, the fact that everyone acted on this assumption and I was led to believe it gave me the same rights and responsibilities as any father in a divorce. One of my concerns was that I would not have visitation rights with my children if Denise and I divorced. This fear has now been eliminated. I wasn't planning on filing for divorce yet, fearing how it might affect Nate, but I had a different legal plan. I was leaving work a few days later, still staying at the hotel, when my phone rang with a call from Chelsea. I had a feeling I knew what it was going to be about. Yes, Chelsea. Henry, please. Child support for last year. I know you're angry, but you shouldn't do this. What? He slept with my wife and let me raise 3 children, and he gets off scot-free? He avoided me when I went to beat him. What else remains? It won't change anything, Henry. It won't change what happened, and you won't get any money from us. We can't pay what we don't have. You can always deduct it from his salary. Henry, you know we're already struggling to make ends meet. This money won't make a difference to you, but it's the difference between our kids eating well or not. Even just paying a lawyer would probably bankrupt us. I know you want to punish Gabe, and you probably want me to suffer too, but my children are innocent in this. Don't make them suffer just so you can punish us. They were all good points. The truth was that nothing would change what had already happened. I was already earning enough, so any money I would receive from them would only be for punishment, and it would be unfair, at least in relation to the children. I really didn't want to do this, and at that moment, I realized that I was acting out of anger, hoping to make someone else suffer, which was immature and counterproductive. Obviously, the only one who will suffer the consequences of this is me. I put Chelsea on hold and called my lawyer. Doug, this is Henry Weston. Drop the lawsuit against my cousin. Yes, I know you think this is the right decision. I don't care what you think about it. Just send me your bill. I ended the call and returned to the other line. Okay, cancelled. Satisfied? Yes, Henry. Thank you. It was the right decision. I hope you understand what this means to us. I guess I understand. I also know what this means to me. This is the final nail in my coffin. Goodbye, Chels. As I was about to press the button to end the call, I heard Chelsea call after me, asking what I meant, but it seemed to me that it didn't matter. No one seemed to care about what was happening to others, much less what was happening to me, so I doubted she would lose sleep over any decision I made. I returned to my hotel and wallowed in my pain and suffering. I was incredibly hurt by what Denise had done, and as I was going over everything in my mind, a thought occurred to me that had never occurred to me before. I didn't actually have children. My whole life has been a damn lie. My faithful wife was not faithful. My mother conspired with my wife to force her to have an intim with another man and pass the children off as mine after lying to me about a medical condition. But the hardest blow of all was that my children, including my sweet little Gracie, the apple of my eye, were not really mine. Oh, I still loved them, and I understood that biology was just one way to create a family, but now it was different. At that moment, something inside me just broke. I didn't leave the hotel for 5 days. I did nothing for 5 days except go to the corner store. I lived on prepackaged sandwiches and frozen burritos washed down with lots of beer. I didn't shave or shower. I received many text messages asking me to call or write something. I ignored them all except one, which said that Nate's kidneys were functioning normally and would not require a transplant. He was expected to make a full recovery and return home soon. As I was trying to sleep that night, I smelled a terrible smell and soon realized it was me. It was 2:27 a.m. when I got up and went to shower. I spent about 30 minutes there and then went to bed for a few more hours. I woke up refreshed, having made a decision. I have lived my entire adult life for the sake of others. I have always had responsibilities to my family, especially to my wife. Now I didn't have any, at least not in front of Denise. She did what she wanted, so I was going to do what I wanted. That morning, I called my boss and explained to him that I would be quitting when my FMLA leave ended. He convinced me to take unpaid leave for the time being, although at that moment, I was sure that I would never return there. My only responsibility now was to the children, and at that moment, I didn't really care about them either. She created them without my participation, so she could maintain them without me. My next stop was the Harley dealer. Oh yes, I was going to buy a motorcycle. I always wanted one, but I put my desires on hold because I had a family. But not anymore. I had enough money in my account, and I took a good amount out of it. I even took a course and got certified at a weekend camp a few years ago, so I was going to be driving and living on the road for a while. Part of me regretted that there was enough money left in the account to last Denise for a long time, but I was glad that the children would be provided for. The engine roared as I drove slowly down the street. I wore a helmet so none of the neighbors could recognize me. I stopped the motorcycle in front of the house, and before I even turned off the engine, Denise ran outside screaming for me to get out of her driveway. The look on her face when I took off my helmet was priceless, but she recovered quickly. "What is this thing?" she demanded. "My new motorcycle," I answered. "Oh no, you have to give it back. There's no way we'll keep it." "No." "No?" What do you mean no? We discussed this before, and we agreed. No, Denise. You dictated, and I agreed. But not anymore. You lost the right to tell me what to do the moment you opened your legs for Gabe. Whatever you told yourself to justify it in your thoughts, everything you did was cheat and deceive me, and I don't listen to you anymore. Henry, please. I'm done. I only came to get some things and to say goodbye to the children. I walked past her and entered the house. She followed me, calling me to stop and talk. I didn't stop, heading straight to what used to be our bedroom and grabbed a few changes of clothes and a toothbrush. Hey, even social outcasts need to take care of their teeth. Are you really leaving? Wasn't I clear? What about work? I quit. You quit? Are you crazy? We have 3 children. How are we going to live now? Correction, you have 3 children. I don't have any, and the days of supporting you and your lover's children are over. Guess you'll have to find a job. Okay, I know I was rude. I wasn't going to let the kids suffer. Denise, yes, but the children, no. But she didn't know that at the moment, and I loved seeing her suffer. Damn it, Henry. How many times do I have to tell you that he was never my boyfriend until you have the 3 children he fathered? I'm sorry, honey. Okay, I made a huge mistake, and I'm sorry, but other than that, we had a wonderful marriage. I love you very much. We have to find a way to get over this. Please don't break up the family, Henry. This made me angry. Don't put this on me, Denise. What did you think would happen when I found out about this? There are ways to start a family other than the way you did it. The only reason for doing it your way was to hide my condition from me and so that you could survive the pregnancy. No, that's on you and your pimp, not me. Okay, all my mistakes. I'm a terrible person. But, honey, please let me try to fix it. How can you fix this? It's not like I could have 3 children with another woman, even if I wanted to, and I'm certainly not going to stoop to the level of revenge by cheating. So please, tell me what you can do. I don't know. I just know that I don't want to lose you. Believe it or not, I love you, and I really did have the best intentions. Okay, maybe my own wants and needs influenced my decisions. That's who I am now, I see. But you have to believe that it wasn't done intentionally. The problem is that I don't know what to believe, and even if I believe what you just said, I'm not sure it will change anything. You still did what you did, and nothing can change that, so I'm leaving, not forever, but for a while. I'll call the kids when I can, but only for the children. For now, I'm going to say goodbye. I left enough money in the account, so you'll be fine for a long time. Thank you. I headed to Nate's room. He was resting while Gracie and Danny played quietly. They always got along well, and I was glad that they would support each other. The conversation went predictably, with tears on all sides. I assured them that I loved them and would come back to see them as soon as I could. When all was said and done, I got ready to leave, but not before Nate asked to talk to me alone for a minute. I took the younger children out of the room and sat on his bed. I know what's going on, Dad. What do you mean? I'm not stupid. I heard it all when everyone thought I was dreaming. Cousin Gabe is my biological father, isn't he? You don't have to worry about such things, Dad. I have a right to know. You're right. You have a right to know. Yes, he is. I mean, I don't have the DNA to prove it, but that's what I was told. What about Gracie and Danny? So I understood. That's what I thought. It's not what it seems. It seems like Mom had an intimate with Cousin Gabe many times. Isn't that what husband and wife should do? It's difficult, but yes, that's usually the case. Is that why you're leaving? Because we're not your children anymore, he spoke without emotion, matter-of-factly. I was again amazed at how mature he seemed, how well he handled such mature subjects. Perhaps a brush with death will do the same to you. Hey, you will always be my children. I didn't go through all those diapers, sleepless nights, and skin knees to lose you when you finally became interesting. No, I'm leaving because I need to decide what to do. I understand it, but I don't understand why Mom did what she did. We'll have to talk about this another time, champ. Right now, your mom and I have something to work on, and it's personal. Dad, are you going to handle this? That was the $64,000 question, wasn't it? I don't know, buddy. Right now, I just don't know. Okay, Dad. Calm down. Just don't forget about us. Never. Gracie and Danny hugged me one last time before I walked out the front door. Denise hugged me too, but unlike the kids, I didn't hug her back. I was still so angry at what she did that even the slightest affection lost its appeal. I also told her that Nate knew who his real father was and that he found it out himself. It was clear from her face that she was unhappy with this development of events. Without a specific destination in mind, I headed towards California. I'd been there a couple of times, but always for work, and my time there was limited. This seemed like a good opportunity to do some sightseeing. I deliberately did not shave before leaving, thinking that it would fit into the biker image, which I knew very little about. What I knew were mostly stereotypes, but these are stereotypes, right? So, in addition to the facial growth and wild hair, I brought along jeans, some t-shirts, socks, work boots, and a leather jacket that I had once bought for a 50s night dance that Denise and I went to a few years ago. I knew I wasn't in that mood, but I thought I looked the part. I found the perfect solution, a rolling bed with a built-in tent for one person. Essentially, the gurney served as the base for the tent. This allowed me to remain high above the ground and protected from the elements. I took my time on the 20-plus hour drive from Texas to California. It actually took me about a week to get to the coast since I made numerous stops in New Mexico and Arizona along the way. When I finally arrived, I drove along the coastal highways and beaches and was really impressed by the views, both of the women in swimsuits and the beaches themselves. For a guy born and raised in Texas, this was exciting. I liked Laguna Beach and Corona del Mar but found Long Beach a little snobby. It was clear that these people are wealthy and have the right to enjoy their blessings, but this simply did not suit me. In total, I spent about 2 weeks on the sunny beaches of Southern California, and by the end of the trip, I had come to the inevitable conclusion that it was a nice place to visit but I wouldn't want to live there. And so I began the journey back into more familiar territory. I also realized how amazing perception is. Here I am, a senior manager at a Fortune 500 company and as normal looking as can be, but put me on a Harley and let me run it a little, and suddenly people start looking at me when I walk into a restaurant and act like I'm a member of the Hells Angels. I did nothing to dissuade them from this opinion. In fact, I even liked it. I got the same reaction at the bars I went to along the way. It was a little different than walking into, say, Denny's, but a lot of people still left some space around me. However, once they realized that I wouldn't kill them just for breathing, it became clear that bad guy fascination was a real thing. Every time I stopped for a drink, at least a couple of women made it clear that they were open to a one-night stand, and most of them were married or at least wearing rings. In fact, there were so many of them that I began to hope it was just a trend amongst single women to wear rings to increase the naughty factor, making men think they were having a relationship with a married woman. I politely refused all offers, but these bars were just regular bars where I seemed to come from the bad part of town. I began to wonder how I would fare in a real biker bar. Then I wondered how I would even find a real biker bar. I asked the local motorcycle shop about it, and they were quite helpful and seemed a little amused. They were kind enough to direct me to a place called Dirty Dog, which was just a few minutes north near the regional airport. Although I was now back in Texas and only 2 hours from home, this was an area I was completely unfamiliar with. I made the trip for the first time in the afternoon to find this place. It was a freestanding building that looked quite decent, even though the surrounding buildings were dilapidated and abandoned. I assumed that Dirty Dog's customers drove out other businesses or at least contributed to it. I returned to the city and rented a hotel room. I took a nap and then wondered if I should take a shower. In my mind, bikers don't shower often, but I had no basis for that assumption. Not wanting to stink the first time, I decided to take a shower and see how it went. If someone says something about me smelling like Irish Spring, I'll brush it off with a joke about it being my monthly shower or something. I parked in the lot, and as I expected, there were a few motorcycles and a few pickup trucks there. I didn't know if there was any hierarchy, so I just parked to the side. Again, I was relying solely on assumptions and stereotypes. I walked through the door and caught a few glances my way, but I clearly wasn't interesting enough to hold anyone's attention. I walked up to the counter and simply ordered a beer, trying not to stand out. I sat down at a small table nearby, and looking around the room, I noticed a woman looking at me. She was about 35 and had long, straight brown hair that went down just above her butt. She was wearing jeans and boots, a black t-shirt, and a regular denim vest. She was sitting with a guy who was the epitome of a biker, from his leather vest to his dark eyes and massive muscles. I tried to act casual, just a guy drinking beer. I soaked up the atmosphere, if such a word fits such a place, and from time to time, I glanced at the brunette. Every time, she was still looking at me. To be honest, it was a little unsettling. I was the only one in the establishment who sat alone, and I had no idea how to change that or become one of them, so I didn't do anything. After about 15 minutes, during which the lady's eyes barely left me, she said something to the guy she was sitting with and then stood up and walked toward me. She wasn't wearing makeup, but she didn't need it. She was quite naturally attractive, maybe not a model, but quite pleasant to look at. She sat down in another chair without a word. She looked at me for another 30 seconds. "Accountant," she suddenly said. "Sorry?" I asked. "Are you an accountant?" "No." "Dentist?" "No, not a dentist," I replied, starting to have fun. "Why these questions?" "Well, you're definitely not a biker, so I figured you were having a midlife crisis, and guys like that are usually accountants or dentists or something like that." I stopped laughing, but she didn't seem to notice. "Failed the test, huh?" "Not at all," she laughed. I woke up. "Thanks for the reality check," I said and headed for the door. She grabbed my hand and turned me back towards her. "Hey, wait. I didn't mean to send you away." "No, you were just trying to humiliate and shame me." "It worked out great." I freed myself from her grip and walked across the bar to the door. It probably wasn't that far, but at that moment, it seemed like an eternity. I was sure that everyone in the establishment was looking at me and quietly mocking me. At least it was quiet. I walked to my motorcycle, swung my leg over, and just sat there for a minute. Never before had I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. Before I could put the helmet on, I felt hands on my shoulders and the weight of the bike get heavier as someone sat down behind me. I had no doubt who it was. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I'll let you take me." I turned around and looked at her. She had already tied her long brown hair up with a blue bandana. "Helmet? Are you going to crash?" "I don't plan to." "Then let's go." "I don't want any trouble with your boyfriend." "No problem." "I don't have one." "Oh, I thought the guy you were sitting with." "He's my brother." "That could be even worse." "Everything will be fine." "Let's go." I started the engine and felt her arms wrap around me. Without a specific destination, I just started driving. Sometimes she would point or yell in my ear to go one way or another, and I would do so without having much of an opinion about where we were going. We rode aimlessly for about 30 minutes before she started giving me more specific directions. Finally, we stopped in front of a small house in a modest neighborhood. It was well maintained, and the landscaping was neat. "Who lives here?" I asked. She turned around and looked at me like I was an idiot, and in retrospect, it was a stupid question. "I am." "Let's go in." We entered the house, and she offered me a drink. I settled on water. She handed me the glass, and we sat down on the sofa. "Doesn't it bother you that you invited a guy you just met to your house?" "No offense, but I'm sure I can handle you," she replied with a smile. I thought she might be right. "What is your name?" "Henry." "And you?" "Melody." "Everyone calls me Mel." "Okay, Melody," I said, and she smiled. "So, why are we here?" "To talk. I've clearly hit a nerve with you, and I don't think you're having a midlife crisis, at least not a traditional one. I thought you might want to talk about it. Looks like I just needed to vent, maybe. I thought telling the whole story would help me understand better. Who knows?" I then told the whole dirty story to Melody while she listened intently. You think it was just to get pregnant? I think so. I was angry and lashed out, but I don't think they were ever real lovers in the usual sense. But that doesn't change how I was deceived and manipulated. I agree. I'm just trying to understand. The real problem is there a chance you can forgive her? Part of me wants this to go back to where we were. We were happy until Nate got hurt, but even then we bonded as a family. But I can't forget it, and it colors everything she says and does, or ever did. Every time I think about my children, I think about what she did. Have you noticed that you call them my children? Because they're mine, Melody. What she did doesn't change that, at least in practice. I've been there every day of their lives and will continue to do so. It's not about them, it's about her. We talked some more, but it was really just a repeat of everything, and I was tired of talking about it. Besides, it was getting late, so I prepared to leave, thanking Melody for her hospitality and for listening to me. It's quite late, Henry. Are you sure you're not too tired to drive? I'm really tired, but I think I can do it. It's not far. Why don't you just stay here? I appreciate the offer, but I don't think this sofa is big enough for me. It was a 2-room house, but the second bedroom had been turned into an office with several exercise machines that appeared to be in active use. That's not what I meant, she said, smiling. Listen, Melody. Henry, don't get me wrong. It's been a long time since I've woken up next to someone. Even the times I satisfied my needs, I either sent them home or left on my own. I wasn't interested in sleeping next to them and especially not repeating last night. So why did you do it the first time? I said, smiling. Hey, I have the same needs as everyone else, and toys don't always help. So I do what I have to do, she laughed. Well, will you stay? Do you usually sleep without clothes? Usually, she said. I thought for a moment, and Melody knew exactly what I was thinking. Stop imagining me without clothes. Are you staying or not? I decided to stay, so I went out to the motorcycle and grabbed a pair of gym shorts, a clean t-shirt, and boxers. By the time I got back, the shower was running, and now I had to face that image in my mind. It was too late to call the kids, so I just sat and looked at the news on my phone until I finally heard the bathroom door open. Melody was wearing a simple black t-shirt and spandex shorts, dressed as promised. Your turn. I got into the shower and, like many times lately, quickly dealt with the pain. This relieved the tension, but barely. I got dressed and left the bathroom, finding Melody sitting in bed reading. I nervously climbed in next to her. It was the first time I had shared a bed with a woman other than my wife in years. She just smiled, understanding too well how I felt. Are you okay? She asked. Yeah, it's okay. You know, we talked about me so much that I never asked about you. What do you do? I'm a nurse. Is it true? Yes. I work at Scott & White across town. Tomorrow is my day off, but I have to work on Monday. This is great. Do you like it? I love it. I can't imagine doing anything else, and I love the freedom it gives me because a nurse can always find a job wherever she goes. She leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. I closed my eyes and quickly fell asleep, although Melody was still reading. I was apparently more tired than I thought. I woke up on my stomach with Melody's hand on my back and her left leg bent at the knee, resting on my legs. Her breathing suggested she was still asleep, and I didn't want to move, so I held it there as long as possible. Just as my bladder was on the verge of exploding, I felt her begin to move and stretching. I slid off the bed and made it to the bathroom before anything serious happened. Will you take me out to breakfast today, big boy? Certainly. Sorry, honey. I haven't worn a bra outside of work in 15 years, and I'm not going to start now. Why? I don't like them and really don't think I need them. Plus, I'm a biker girl. You do this? Hundreds of times. Usually with my friends and Paul's wife. Honestly, it turns me on, she said, winking at me. We got dressed, and zipping up my pants was a little difficult due to the scene Melody had made. We rode the motorcycle to a town diner. It was the kind of place where the food was delicious, the portions were large, and the prices were reasonable. But if you ate there every day, you would gain a lot of weight and die young. Today, it was just good. We spent the day riding. This time, I forced her to wear a helmet, not being confident in my skills to keep her safe for so long. Most of the time, I just turned or didn't turn as it came to mind, but every now and then Melody would point me in the right direction, just like she had done last night. We stopped for lunch at a butcher shop. She ordered the beef, and I had the Reuben. I appreciated that she actually ate real food. She told me about her childhood growing up in the counterculture. She was 37 and had never been married. She had been in love a couple of times, but it just didn't work out. Her parents were also bikers and died about 10 years ago when a car crashed into them at a red light. Her brother was her only remaining relative, although financial assistance allowed her to buy a house. We spent the rest of the day driving around, stopping a couple of times for ice cream or just to relax for a few minutes. I felt comfortable with Melody. She was outgoing and funny, and we even kissed a few times, nothing serious but definitely more than just a quick kiss. After dinner at a local steakhouse, we headed back to her house to change with plans to head to the Dirty Dog again. Melody said she and her friends spend about 5 or 6 nights a week there, and tonight would be no exception. I took a shower first. We pulled into the parking lot and entered the bar. As soon as we entered, Melody's brother, Paul, saw us and headed towards us. As I mentioned earlier, brothers are often worse than guys when it comes to defending a woman's honor. Despite Melody's previous assurances that he wouldn't be a problem, I felt my guts clench in anticipation of a serious fight. "Did you sleep with my sister last night?" he said with intensity, walking straight towards me. No, we were just talking, that's all," I said quickly, trying to avoid any fractures or internal injuries. "I'm too young to die." He continued to stare at me for about a minute, and I felt myself shrinking in front of him. I felt like such a coward. Suddenly, he broke out into a wide smile and patted me on the shoulder with his meaty paw. "It's a shame. I heard she's great in bed." He and his friends burst into laughter as I breathed a sigh of relief. "Come on, city guy, today is the first game at the table. Duke, a beer for my guy, at my expense." The group continued to laugh happily as they headed towards the pool table at the side of the room. While I tried to catch my breath and stop my body from shaking uncontrollably, Melody came up to me and took my hands in hers. "Are you okay?" "I will be." "Did you know he would do that?" "Not specifically, but Paul likes to make jokes, so I'm not surprised he pulled something like that." "I'm really sorry," she said, trying not to laugh. I just shook my head and smiled as I took her hand and walked towards the pool table. Once again, we woke up in the same bed. This morning, we woke up spooning, my right arm wrapped around her waist and my hand resting on her stomach, separated only by the cotton of her nightgown. I slowly pulled myself free and used the bathroom, returning to a now awake Melody lying in bed waiting for me. "I used it," she said mysteriously. "Have you?" I asked, wondering if she meant what I was thinking. "Your warmth." "What else?" she responded, but with a smirk that suggested my initial guess was correct. "What time are you at work today?" 7 to 7, Monday through Friday. It's a long day, 60 hours a week. We get 2 hours of break a day, although it's still 50 hours. But it pays well, and now I have evenings and weekends. Seniority is great, you never have to work on weekends or evenings. Sometimes I take a shift as a favor, but my schedule is only weekdays. What will you do today? I think probably. Will you be here when I get back? Here or at the dog? I won't leave forever without telling you, Melody. I really owe you a lot for what you did. Thank you. She hugged me and went into the shower to get ready for work. I went to the kitchen and quickly made scrambled eggs and toast for breakfast and packed her a cup of coffee in an insulated mug. I've never had a man take care of me. I like it. We chatted about stuff while she ate, and then she left for work, leaving me a quick kiss on the lips. I went and made myself comfortable in her bed, first undressing. Melody's scent was all over the bed, and I inhaled it deeply. What the hell do I do now? I don't even remember how tired I was, but apparently, I dozed off. I woke up to a text message ringing on my phone. It was from Melody. She was asking me to buy some steaks for dinner because she wanted to stay home tonight and thought we could grill them. I answered yes and went outside to my motorcycle. I knew it was a relatively small town, although it was the only town of significant size in the entire county, allowing the medical center where Melody worked to maintain a strong business. But it still surprised me when I walked into Save Max and saw Rhonda working behind the bakery counter. The loose polo shirt and apron she wore hid nothing of her assets. She raised her head and saw me as I walked towards her. "Hello," she said warmly. "Restocking, Mel?" "No, just grabbing a few things for dinner. She wants to stay home tonight." "Ah, a romantic evening at home," she purred, winking at me. "It's not like that, Rhonda." "Maybe not for you," she said almost to herself, or so I thought. "What is this?" "Damn, just ignore it, Henry. Here, this French bread just came out of the oven, hot and fresh. Have a nice evening." I was obviously rejected, and it seemed like Rhonda had let the talk of the town out of the bag if I understood and interpreted her correctly. I thanked her for the bread and moved on to get the rest of the menu. Plus, I replenished some of the breakfast items we had run out of. By the time Melody walked through the door, I had already rubbed and marinated the steaks, and soon they were on the grill. I also bought some pre-made vegetable skewers that I threw on the grill next to a pot of canned beans. "I have everything under control, so take a shower, and dinner will be ready soon," I told her. She just hugged me and kissed me on the cheek, then went to the bedroom. She joined me on the deck as I finished cooking. She had changed into her nightgown and put on pajama pants to keep her legs warm. She wrapped her arms around my torso and just pressed herself against me. It was very nice. We were silent until the food was ready, and I put it on plates for us. The evening was beautiful, and the temperature outside was moderate enough to eat on the deck. We then ate some gelato I had bought for dessert while we watched a movie on TV. When the movie finally ended, I discovered that Melody had fallen asleep. I nudged her lightly to wake her up, and we slowly walked into the bedroom. She leaned on me as we walked. I didn't turn on the light but led her to her side of the bed, then walked over to mine. She slipped out of her pajama pants, and I took off my shirt, and we settled into bed. She was not unobtrusive. I woke up looking at the clock, which showed 3:27, with Melody's hand in my shorts. "Melody, I want you." "Henry," she whispered, "please don't say no." The night was great. By morning, our positions were reversed. I rolled over onto my right side, facing away from her. Melody was also lying on her right side, her left arm lying on my torso, and her left leg, bent at the knee, was thrown over my leg. I felt her breasts press against my back, and I was grateful, especially after last night. I woke up to the alarm, and Melody was still fast asleep. I turned off the alarm and woke her up. She responded by wrapping her arms around me and pulling me close, then whispered in my ear, "Thanks for last night." "I should rather thank you. That was incredible." We kissed for about a minute before reluctantly parting ways so she could get ready for work. Last night was truly incredible, but it only complicated my thoughts about the situation at home. I did not regret what I had done, but I tried to avoid repetition. I foresaw that my stay here would soon end. With that thought in mind, I spent the day cleaning Melody's house. I hadn't packed my things yet, but I organized them so that I'd be ready when the time comes. Melody returned from work on time. She thanked me for cleaning, but if she suspected anything more, she didn't let it show. She took a shower and dressed in biker chick style for the first time since last night. She did this in front of my eyes, apparently because there were no more secrets between us, and I couldn't help but admire this picture. She smiled when she noticed my gaze. We went to the bar, and Paul met us at the door again with a watchful eye. Just when I was wondering what he was doing, he made it clear. He stepped away from me. Well, I was right. Right about what? I asked. You know what? Did I hear correctly? Now I understood what he was talking about. Somehow he found out about last night, and I looked to Melody for guidance on what to do or say. She just shrugged as if it didn't matter. Thanks for your help, dear. Wait, expensive crap. Paul waited for an answer. I looked him straight in the eyes. Yes, Paul, you heard correctly. I paused for effect. Yeah, your sister is one hell of a hottie. The whole bar erupted in laughter, and Paul just nodded with a grin. I immediately realized that he was waiting for the noise to die down to make his answer. I waited impatiently, and finally, it became quiet enough. Of course she is, he said with a smile. It's family. The bar erupted in laughter again, and I saw Melody blush. I have to admit that I was surprised to find that she could be even a little shy, all things considered. Melody and I joined Paul and Rhonda at their table and chatted for about an hour before Rhonda took Melody away. Hey, the dartboard is free. Let's play a couple of games. This left Paul and me alone at the table. I don't think Melody noticed, but I saw the quick glance Paul gave Rhonda. This was not a spontaneous game of darts. What do you want to discuss? I asked. Paul noticed it right away. Yes, what's happened? She's fallen in love with you, you know that, right? I thought so. And what's worse is that I'm pretty sure I feel the same way. Any ideas on what I'll do when I'm with her? I can't think clearly at some point, and perhaps soon I'll have to get back on the road and make some decisions if this doesn't work. I can't even afford to think about it, Paul. If I start thinking about what to do if Denise and I split up, I'm not sure I'll be able to handle it. I have to focus only on the current situation. I don't envy you, Paul said. I can't imagine what I would have done if Rhonda had given me something like that. You're a lucky man. I know. I hope everything works out for you, no matter how you decide. By the time Rhonda and Melody returned to the table, Paul and I were talking about innocuous topics. The ladies settled on our laps, and Melody kissed me so passionately that she nearly kicked the soles of my boots off. How the hell can I refuse this woman? The evening was fun, and I even managed to beat Paul at a game of pool, which was a first. I think he gave me a head start, though. When Rhonda hugged me goodbye, she held me a little longer and a little tighter, and even kissed me on the cheek. Obviously, something was wrong. The drive home to Melody's house was silent. Melody was unusually quiet and just went to take a shower. I started the laundry and then returned to the bedroom. When Melody came out, already dressed for bed, she said softly, "Your turn," and went to bed. I took a slow shower, thinking about Melody's behavior. It didn't take me long to realize that she was trying to distance herself from me in anticipation of my departure. She had acted normally at the beginning of the evening, so I assumed that she and Rhonda had talked while Paul and I talked. Even though Rhonda had no idea of my plans, perhaps she was just telling her to be ready. I put on my boxers and shorts and joined Melody in bed. She immediately put the book down and pressed herself close to me, placing her head on my chest and rubbing my stomach with her left hand. She got straight to the point. "Where are you leaving?" I didn't set the exact time, but it's soon. If I don't leave soon, I may never leave, and I'm not free to do that now. I know, and I wouldn't want to keep you. You care about things in your life, and that's one of the things I like most about you. We lay quietly, enjoying each other's presence and feeling. In my head, I was trying to figure out the best time to leave, knowing that there really was no best time. After a couple of minutes, Melody spoke again. "I think you should leave tomorrow." "Tomorrow? While I'm at work? I don't think I can watch you leave, so you just have to disappear." "I don't have to leave tomorrow?" "Yes, you need to, because the longer you are here, the more painful it will be. Please, Henry, make love to me tonight, tenderly and affectionately, not like last night. Make love to me tonight, and then go away tomorrow and sort this out." My silent response was to gently pull her head back and press my lips to hers. I took off her nightgown and was not surprised by the absence of panties. We spent the next few hours enjoying each other's bodies. Finally, we fell asleep without anything in each other's arms. We slept like the dead and didn't move for the rest of the night, and my body felt like proof of it. In the morning, we enjoyed one last slow, leisurely session before she had to get ready for work and I had to get ready to leave. Finally, we were able to break away from each other, and she got dressed for work. Since she didn't want me to leave at the same time, I didn't make any preparations. By the time she returned, I would have already left. I walked her to the front door as before, and before walking through, she stopped and put her arms around my neck. Don't forget me, Henry. Melody, I promise you that no matter what happens in the rest of my life, I will never forget you. I watched her walk away and get into her little commuter car to go to work. I was pretty sure I was about to do the stupidest thing in my life. I packed my backpack and attached my bowler tent to the back of the bike. I decided to go east this time. I had not yet returned home, although I did not know what could happen that I had not yet foreseen or thought about. My sentimental nature made me drive past Melody's hospital before leaving town. I hoped to see her one last time. What a tough biker I am. But she was nowhere to be seen. 5 days later, taking my time and enjoying the sights along the way, I arrived in Panama City, Florida. I spent the whole day watching the mighty Mississippi, and it brought me a lot of peace. I still called the kids 4 or 5 times a week and even had brief conversations with Denise, although they didn't lead to anything meaningful. The famous white sand beaches of Panama City Beach were truly magnificent, but I don't think I appreciated them as much as I could have. There was too much on my mind. I tried to push Melody out of my thoughts and focus on Denise. I thought about the fact that I truly believed there was nothing more than a basic act of procreation between Denise and Gabe. This was a rather unusual take on the situation. It was just an excuse for cheaters. What bothered me was deeper. The most basic principle of marriage is that it should be a partnership, and we should overcome difficulties together. But when Denise faced a serious problem, she decided to team up with my mom to find a solution and left me in the dark. That solution involved having a night with my cousin multiple times until she got pregnant. Then she did it twice more. If it weren't for Nate's injury, I probably would never have known about it. I mean, how often do situations arise where biocompatibility is a potential issue? Almost never, which is why she was so close to getting away with it. And, part of me wishes she could have done it so I could continue to live in ignorance as they hoped, without knowing the truth. But now I know, and I will never forget it. I finally realized that I simply could not go back to Denise. She made the decision to solve perhaps the biggest dilemma we would ever face in our lives without informing me of the problem. This is my life, and I have the right to have a voice in every part of it. I will always wonder what else she could have been hiding from me, and frankly, I'm already wondering what other important decisions she could have made without my knowledge. It took me about 2 weeks to get home to Denise and the kids. We lived together before all this started. I could have done it faster if I wanted, but I expected that I would have to get back into real life when I returned, and I wanted a little more time in the easy rider style before committing to it. I didn't want to show up suddenly, so I sent Denise a message notifying her of my return, which was scheduled to take place on Saturday. I hoped to see the children and even expected them to run out to meet me when I arrived at the house, but all that happened was Denise walking out the door. "Where are the children?" "At your mother's." "I thought we should talk first." I tried not to show my disappointment, but I'm not sure I succeeded. "Fine, let's go inside." Inside the house, everything was as I remembered. I had been away for about 2 months, which seemed like a long time, but I realized that home decor rarely changes in such a short period, so it shouldn't have come as a surprise. We sat down on the sofa. "How is Nate feeling?" "He feels really great." "I know he told you this on the phone, but it's true. He has a good complexion and is full of energy. I think we've survived this." There was a moment of silence before she continued. "You're going to divorce me, aren't you? Where did you get this from? You don't behave like a man reuniting with his wife after 2 months of separation. One of the reasons your mom had the kids was because I hoped, which I admit was unlikely, that you would come home and pounce on me, indicating that this was the beginning of the rest of our life together. Obviously, this didn't happen. I tried, Denise. Honestly, I tried. I tried to focus on the beautiful children that were the result of what you did and push everything else aside, but I couldn't. I just couldn't ignore what you and Mom did. You hid a medical condition from me. You conspired to sleep with my cousin and get pregnant, not once, but 3 times. And you did your best to deceive me and make me believe that they are mine. I know, honey. I know. I pinned all my hopes on you never knowing. And when Nate got hurt, all I could do was hope to make you understand why I did it and that I love you so much. We should have gone through this together rather than trying to find a way to get what we want by going around each other's backs. "Sorry, honey," she said, nodding in agreement. "I'll go to Mom and talk to the kids. Hopefully, we can work this out amicably. I'm willing to be reasonable about child support and stuff if you can be reasonable about seeing the kids. I'm glad you're not divorcing me either." Of course, I'll be reasonable. I hope she was serious. I didn't talk to my mom directly at first. I was still very angry at her for her role in this and wasn't sure how it would work out. But dealing with the consequences for my immediate family was more important than dealing with my relationship with them. She was in the room when I spoke to the children, so she heard that Denise and I were breaking up, but she wisely remained silent. I'm sure it was her first time. The children were upset, but they seemed to expect it. Plus, I explained to them that I would still live nearby and would see them regularly, which softened the blow a little. I silently prayed that Denise would keep her word. I always thought she was a great mother, so I hoped she wouldn't use her children as weapons. I rented a 2-room apartment not far from home and contacted my boss about returning to work. He was very pleased with my return, as were the managers who had blocked my work. They appointed a temporary person to take my place while I was away, but he needed help. Denise and I used the services of a lawyer friend to file for our divorce, and it actually went very peacefully. I was a little surprised, but I guess Denise accepted the consequences of her decision with more grace and responsibility than I expected. There were a few things that required negotiation, but nothing that couldn't be easily resolved. You might expect that I would immediately go to Melody as soon as the divorce was finalized, but you would be wrong. It's not for lack of desire, but I had just ended a 16-year marriage, and it didn't seem fair to jump into another relationship right away. I wanted to be sure that this wasn't a rebound relationship or that I wasn't just clinging to it like a lifeline. I lasted a whole month. My divorce from Denise took about 90 days from the time I informed Denise of my decision. I spent a month focusing on work and trying to figure out how to move forward without Melody because I'd heard that jumping into a relationship right after another would doom a new relationship to failure. But she didn't give me peace, and I decided that I would not be a slave to circumstances. I've heard people say they're not ready for a new relationship, only to later regret not taking advantage of the opportunity when it presented itself. The right person doesn't always show up at the right time. So that Friday night, I left work, popped home to change into my biker clothes, and headed my bike down the highway to Dirty Dog. I pulled up and smiled as I parked the bike, noticing Paul's bike. I noticed that Melody and Rhonda's cars weren't in the parking lot, but that didn't mean anything. I saw Paul as soon as I walked in, sitting at his usual table. I expected him to be happy to see me, and he was, at least at first. But his expression quickly turned gloomy. Now I was worried. I walked up to him, and he remained seated, waiting for me to approach the table. I extended my hand, and we shook hands. "Hi, Paul. Good to see you." "Hello to you too, Henry. Have a seat." "Duke, one for Henry at my expense." "Thanks, Paul. Is something wrong? Are you here because of Mel?" "Yes. I wanted to wait until my divorce was over, but here I am." "Will she be here later?" "Listen, Henry, I don't know how to tell you this, but she left." "What do you mean, left?" "She left town about 10 days after you left. It was hard for her to come back here and return to an empty house without you. Now Rhonda and I live in her house. She didn't want to sell it, but she didn't want to live there anymore." "Where did she move?" "Where is she?" "Last I heard, she was somewhere in West Virginia. She's a traveling nurse, so she doesn't stay anywhere long." "Damn. Well, if she's there, then I'll go there. Do you have an address?" "She never gives me an address. She just sends me an email telling me where she is and that she's okay. The only phone she has was issued by her company, and she won't give me the number." Damn. I thought suddenly all the energy I had carried throughout the 110-minute ride was gone. I fell into a chair and wanted nothing more than to just get out of here. Everyone here was nice enough, but I wanted Melody, not some dusty bar. I think Paul sensed my depression. "Come on, guy from the city, let's play a game of billiards." I let him lead me to the pool table, even though my heart wasn't in it. Paul let me get started, and it was surprisingly average. We missed a few shots, and I suspected Paul was holding back a little because he's usually a better player. I was about to challenge him, but I decided I appreciated his concern, so I said nothing. We were in the middle of our second game when the door opened, and I would have been shocked if Melody had walked in. It's funny how your brain works. Since I wasn't expecting to see her, I didn't recognize her at first. Just as it clicked in my brain that it was her, I saw her gaze across the room until she fixed it on me. I couldn't help but look at Paul, silently waiting for an explanation. He smiled at me with a sly smile. "I came up with everything," he said. "I decided to deal with it later." By the time I looked at Melody again, she was already running towards me. I prepared myself for her to jump into my arms, which is exactly what happened. Finally, she pulled away. "I saw your motorcycle outside," she said breathlessly. "I knew you'd come back for me." Our lips met again. "If you want to go home early to get to know each other better," I heard Rhonda say. "I don't think they can wait," Paul replied. "Duke, just clean up after yourself later." No more words were needed. I placed Melody's feet on the floor, and we walked down the dimly lit hallway that led to the restrooms, storage room, and Duke's office. We walked into the office, and I turned the lock. We hadn't intimated, obviously. "We have a lot to talk about," I said. "For now, let's just relax and have fun." Melody grabbed some disinfectant wipes from a nearby drawer and wiped down Duke's desk and the floor. I must have had that look on my face because she knew what I was thinking. Yes, Duke's office is used for this quite often, and no, this is not the first time I've done this. I promise that from now on, it will be none other than you, honey. None of us are virgins, so don't worry. Never apologize for what you did before we met. We got dressed and checked our appearance to make sure it wasn't too conspicuous. It's not that everyone didn't know what we did, but there was no point in talking about it openly. The looks on everyone's faces when we reunited with Paul and Rhonda made it clear that there would be no secret. "That sounded fun," Rhonda said as we sat down. "Did you hear us?" I asked. "Honey, in case you haven't noticed, Melody isn't exactly quiet," she replied. Melody blushed a little, but I suspected she was well aware that she was in for a verbal display. After all, she had done this before. I just smiled. Denise had never liked public speaking, and I found myself enjoying my fame. After we alternated between love and sleep for the next few hours, Melody and I discussed the logistics of us moving in together. The truth is, although we had only known each other for a week, and although it was an amazing week, it was still just a week. I was worried that neither of us should make major changes immediately. We started with our places of work. Her hospital was slightly closer to my area than her home, leaving about 90 minutes of actual travel time to my office. We also looked at the long term. There were many hospitals in my city that she could have worked at given the city's large population, but my office was where it was, and that couldn't be changed. So first, we found a compromise. We rented a small 3-room house about halfway between our jobs, providing less than ideal travel conditions for both of us. But we decided that 6 months together should be enough time to make final decisions. Paul and Rhonda moved into Melody's house, which was actually planned before I came on the scene in case Melody decided to move out. The extra bedrooms in our rental house were, of course, for visits from my children. Although it was a situation I wasn't looking forward to, Nate knew the reality of things, and Gracie probably understood it too. But Danny was too young to fully grasp it. In any case, my cohabitation with another woman so soon after divorcing their mother would have caused some emotions, and it was impossible to avoid. I found an unexpected ally in handling this situation, Denise herself. She told me that she was sad and disappointed by my decision, but she understood. She wanted us to remain friends so we could co-parent effectively, and she made sure we presented a united front to the children. She didn't really like Melody when they first met, but over time, they developed a friendship. Melody turned out to be a wonderful stepmother and, over time, became very close to the children, earning the nickname Mama Mel. We eventually moved closer to the city, and the kids and Melody took a job at a nearby hospital. She had lost some of her comfortable schedule, now working evenings and weekends, but she didn't hesitate. Over time, Melody and Denise became very good friends. It wasn't unusual if I came home to find them by the pool together, drinking white wine and sunbathing. It was almost real. This didn't bother me at all. I didn't mind spending time with Denise, and I didn't hate her. I just couldn't be married to her after what she did. But I didn't feel any malice in her actions, it was just bad judgment. When she married her new husband, a sweet guy named Alvin, Melody and I were there. Paul and Rhonda also came to our home often, even when Rhonda was pregnant with both of their children. The situation with my mother was still a little unclear. On the one hand, she should have told me about my infertility because knowing that would probably have prevented this whole situation. She is also guilty of helping plan the conception and supporting the deception. On the other hand, I don't think she did it with malice, just as I don't think Denise did. They took risks and failed, but they weren't trying to hurt me. So while the relationship will likely never be the same, we are slowly trying to rebuild what we can. The same can be said about my relationship with my cousin Gabe. We were close as brothers, but all this changed our relationship. I can go to the same events, like family gatherings, and not want to beat him up, but that's where it ends. We don't spend time together anymore, only alone. I miss this, but I think he should have done better. His wife Chelsea is fine. I understand the position she was in, and that if she had said anything, it could have ruined her own marriage, so I have completely forgiven her. In the end, everything worked out, maybe not in the best way, but definitely better than I expected after that phone call that changed my life. What do you think of our story today? In my opinion, the story was interesting and had some unusual plot twists that I have not seen much of. What's your opinion? Write in the comments. See you in the comments.